The pandemic proved me to be wrong again. But the other way, we are about 18 months ahead of our business plans in all areas: product development, customer acquisitions, revenue, hire.
Sometimes I'm even trying to do German into Swiss German, my native dialect. And, after, I don't know, 10, 15 seconds, I'll lose track.
And I thought this was pretty cool. Apparently they communicate with freelance translators on Slack, so there's quite a tight cooperation.
And welcome to SlaterPod 57. Welcome from Zurich.
Hi from London.
Although this feels like SlaterPod 57.11 because this is, I don't know, it's the 10th or 11th try we're doing for this particular episode. And not to bore the audience with our failed tries to record, but looks like the people that are providing us with the software to record that had a bit of a hiccup. And so we're recording this on Zoom, straight on Zoom. But we have a fantastic guest today who can tell us all about the intricacies and difficulties and challenges of doing, remote audio and video. We have Fardad Sabitian, co-founder and CEO of Kudo, the remote simultaneous interpreting platform founded in 2016, but he's also the founder of MediaVision and Conference Rental. So these two companies have been in business for a couple of decades, of course. So looking forward to that conversation. Quick announcement. We have Design Thinking, our workshops booked out now, but we're following quickly with another workshop, Email Marketing for Freelance Linguists, co-hosted with Pavel Ilin from Free Language, helping linguists understand the good old-fashioned channel of email marketing.
Sounds good.
It's a good one. I mean, we got our newsletter, and we got our weekly newsletter that reaches now 13,400 subscribers. So it's obviously a key channel for us in our marketing. And I think translators and linguists can take maybe some inspiration from that. And of course, Pavel's the expert there, so I'll probably be attending that as well. On the agenda today, just briefly, we're going to talk about TouchCast, a virtual conferencing platform that raised a bunch of money. Then we're going to talk about health tech startup Aura and how they localize in Finland. Quickly talk about our jobs index, and then I have some very interesting new piece of data that was outsourced, or piece of data, I don't know, treasure trove of a lot of data, gigabytes of it, from TEDx Talks. TouchCast. Story that came in. What is it? Story that came in today from our sweep service, daily email we're sending to subscribers. So, there's like 15, 20, 30 stories every day that we're reviewing. And this one, I mean, we're not going to cover it with an article on Slater, but it was so interesting. So basically, it seems like it's a very sleek, new virtual reality type conferencing platform. But get that. The annual subscription starts as $55,000. So it seems this is not really targeted at the retail.
Probably not for us.
It's not for us. Well, who knows? But no, it's not for us. We just signed up for Hopin, the pro version there. But $55,000. So this is more for like corporate clients, big banks, investor meetings, corporate access, where you talk to big investors, big tech companies, etc. And they call it a mixed reality event platform. Now, why am I talking about this? Well, because part of the whole package is already the voice, the dubbing, right? The subtitling, and they have like an option of like AI generated and human generated. So this is already part of the standard offering, right? So it's interesting. You see where it's going, where you're giving the client basically immediately as the option of, okay, would you like to get AI generated subtitling, or would you like to get human generated subtitling and dubbing, etc.?
Is that like of the transcript once you finish the meeting, or how does that work?
No, think of it like a big conference stage, right? They make it like virtual,
so like live captioning almost.
Yeah, exactly. It's like live captioning, what we had at our SlaterCon remote. But there's a couple of kinks that they need to work out. So I wanted to look at, there was a part of the website was like, what's a virtual event? And then it took me to a 404 error page. And then I watched the intro video, and I clicked on the German subtitle, and clearly the German subtitle was done using MT. So yeah, it wasn't fantastic. Fun fact, they even mistranslated the word event, which I don't know.
kind of a key term there.
Kind of ironic. So they I guess the equivalent would be an incident. Like they would say, like, you can use it for your incident as opposed to for an event. Like because event in German can mean like an incident, but also an event, like the equivalent of it. So yeah, maybe, I don't know, for your promo video, guys, just use the human option first, right? So, but generally, I'm not trying to, I mean, obviously they have something going for them. Otherwise they would never raise $55 million. But I want to talk to Fardad later a little bit about this whole, the AI component coming into this whole conferencing business and machine translation, etc. So, all right. And now the dog's barking again. I told the audio people to remove that, but I guess now that I'm talking, it's harder to do that. Cool. Okay, let's move over to health tech startup Oura, driving multi-market growth through localization. Who's Oura, and what and how do they manage localization?
Yeah, well, this was an interesting feature that I think we ran earlier this week, probably. We spoke to their localization program manager, Taya, who has been working at Oura Health, I think since 2020. So she is currently a one-person localization team. So Oura itself is a Finnish company, I think he said, founded in 2013. I think their flagship product is kind of a smart wearable ring.
It's the ring.
I guess like the kind of Apple Watch.
It looks really cool.
Like the sort of Apple.
A wearable.
Yeah, and it tells you all about your sleep and your health. Huh? You would wear it.
A wearable.
Yeah. Exactly. Well, yeah, it's wearable, and it tells you about your sleep and your sort of general health insights as well. But yeah, we spoke to them about localization and what they're doing there. So they added 3 languages already, I think, in 2020. So Finnish, Japanese, and German. I think originally they were just having their platform products in English, and they plan to add more languages in 2021. They said they have customers in over 100 different countries, so they obviously want to strengthen their presence around the world, and they very much see localization as a revenue driver and something that is really crucial to growth in multiple markets. So like I mentioned, it's a one-person operation at the moment. So Taya sits in the product organization, although she's cross-functional in a sense that she's working with a lot of different business stakeholders, and they will hopefully grow the team as they scale as well, probably have a centralized team, but then with members in both Finland and in the US, where they also have offices. But they told us a little bit about their current operating model as well, in terms of the localization provisions. They have one localization vendor, and they said all translation work is freelance based. And I thought this was pretty cool that apparently they communicate with freelance translators on Slack. So there's quite a tight cooperation between the buyer and the freelancers working on the translations. And they also told us they use Localize with a K.
Peter's going to be happy about that.
Yeah, yep. He was on the podcast a few months ago, wasn't he? So yep. Yes. And on a type of content, I mean, as you would imagine, they're doing app-based content, and they said that that's kind of their priority when it comes to localization, because it's got the most value to users. And they also have a portion of help content as well, which is actually the biggest in terms of the pure volume, I suppose, number of words, but they don't necessarily go and localize all of the help content for each market right off the bat. And they're also expecting to grow their marketing content, the type of marketing content that they're localizing as they scale and add languages as well. So it's an interesting setup there. We asked a bit about automation and machine translation as well. They said they're automating as much as possible, and they've got things like integrations, APIs. Their design team can apparently push localization or push content for localization straight out of their design tool, which is quite cool. But they don't use machine translation for customer-facing content currently, although they do use it for some internal processes where it makes sense to do so, they said.
Unlike TouchCast, which does use machine translation for customer-facing promo videos.
Clearly. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
No, interesting. Interesting case study. And also, we spoke about it before that, with the advance of the TMS systems generally, LSPs have a little bit of a harder time retaining that core relationship with the end buyer, depending, of course, how far on the maturity curve they sit and how much they actually want to manage in-house. But sometimes it almost feels like we're going back to kind of the olden days that some people told me about when I joined this industry, like the late 80s, early 90s, where a lot of the translation and language teams were internal and managed purely internally. And then there was this big outsourcing wave where my previous company, CLS, was kind of born out of, right? And now with these tools becoming a lot more sophisticated, but also easier to use, there's maybe a little bit of a shift back to managing this internally. So interesting case study. And the ring does look fantastic. So let's go a little macro here. We had the job index for Feb come out, and so how did the numbers look? What happened?
Yeah, well, it's up on January quite significantly by around 4 points. I think just over 4 points. So it's back up to around October 2019 levels. I mean, there was also a dip in January, which is seasonal. So I think it's still ahead of where it was in December by like 3 points or something. So yeah, job ads are up across, the sort of metrics that we use to track the job index. All of the platforms that we track, apart from one, had an increase in job ads for localization related roles.
Got it. Okay. I mean, I think generally, as we're working for our 2021 market report, we're also getting a lot of quantitative data in that suggests we may have to revise upward our initial estimate for market growth, or rather decline, that we had initially for 2020. It seems like, there's a lot of good news around, and obviously there's a bit of a bias with some of these companies that report being maybe more on the winning side, but generally TransPerfect was up 11, Rosetta 3, Zoo forecasts growth, keywords as well. So it looks like generally very, very robust, healthy, resilient performance overall. So we're gonna let's aggregate all of the data points and then see where we end up. But I'm getting a feeling that there might have been even maybe slight growth potentially, or at least a flat performance in 2020, which is extremely interesting given the macro shocks we've experienced. So just quick pointer to close. We also, in our sweep service, we came across an interesting new large data set for those of you that are listening to this podcast who are interested in getting open source data to train models, right? I'm speaking increasingly to LSPs that use that internally use their proprietary engines and build it and train their models. So this is from TEDx, a big corpus from TEDx. It was open sourced by Johns Hopkins and Fondazione Bruno Kessler and the University of Maryland. So they looked at a ton of multilingual TEDx and collected and basically aligned it, right? So it's a big aligned, curated database, and it can be used for automatic speech recognition training, spoken language translation / interpreting training. I think it's 8 languages: Spanish, French, Portuguese, Italian, Russian, Greek, Arabic, and German. And then 5 languages available for translation: English, Spanish, French, Portuguese, and Italian. And the audio recordings are automatically aligned at the sentence level with the manual transcriptions and translations. I downloaded the German one. It was like 2.5 gigabytes, but a lot of it came from the wave files, the audio wave files. So there's probably a dozen or so that you can use. So quite nice for anybody who wants to train models. And again, this kind of closes the loop here a little bit on, with all of this video conferencing going on and, automatic speech recognition, spoken language translation, interpreting, automated is just a big thing, and it's going to get bigger. So let's head over to Fardads and pick his brain on that. Looking forward to that. And everybody, welcome back to SlaterPod. We have Fardads Abedian here, the co-founder and CEO of Kudo, the multilingual web conferencing platform. Hi, Fardad.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Hi, Fardad, welcome.
Thank you, Esther.
Hey, Fardad, where does this podcast find you? What city, what country?
I've been in New York for the longest time without traveling. So it's been almost 14 months of not moving out of New York City. So yes, wow. I'm at the office in Manhattan.
And you got what, 3 inches of snow outside, or?
Yeah.
Feet, I guess now.
The kids, they enjoyed really the snow day for the last 2 days. So they were staying home and having fun.
Great. Excellent. Hey, we introduced you as CEO of Kudo, of course, the multilingual web conferencing platform that people know you, but you're also the founder of MediaVision and Conferencing Rental, like businesses that have been around for 2 decades. So why don't you tell us a bit more about your background in the language industry and the previous companies or the companies that you founded, but also, of course, some of the back story to Kudo.
Sure. Happy to. So I'm originally Iranian, moved to the US back in 2000, did my grad school in San Francisco, and really couldn't find a job. So right after .com burst in San Francisco, early 2000, and started with MediaVision, really passionate about language and technology. My dream at that time was providing solutions for diplomats, especially the Security Council. Growing up in Iran, you can imagine how many times you hear during the war and during all the times about Security Council passed this resolution, Security Council rejected this resolution. So for me, this was like the ultimate goal for me. So started a company, distribution of conferencing and language interpretation equipment, first in the US, grew from there, opened multiple cities in New York, in DC. Fast forward 2011, got a phone call that our company got awarded to renovate the entire UN. So that's what brought me from San Francisco to New York.
Oh, wow.
It was a short 1-year project management trip, turned out to be 10 years. I'm based in New York, married and 2 kids, and loving it. Then, of course, on the side, started a rental company, Conference Rental, really grew fast and became one of the leaders for renting conferencing and language interpretation equipment for organizations, annual events, and so on. So been pretty much living and breathing in this space for 2 decades. But also really understand that how fragmented this market is and how many friction points are out there accessing, interpreting services for business users. So really the vision was how can we really democratize language access and make it possible for non-traditional users of multilingual meetings, i.e. private sector. So that kind of a mission really resonated with me and our co-founders. And we started working on Kudo January of 2017. We spent about 2 years of developing the platform, building a community, and launched the product end of 2018. But one story I want to share about the whole time at Conference Rental. It was 2009. We were just a 3-people company in San Francisco. There's a very beautiful building called the Felon Building. I had an office 10 by 20 foot, 200 square foot which is about 15 square meter kind of a size of the office. Kind of 3 desks, and we had a warehouse outside of the city of microphones, rental microphones, and interpretation equipment. So I invested about $850, looked through my contacts, and basically asked an interpreter to come to our office. We were using Skype at that time, and contacted all these property managers in Mexico. Just knew that the new Mexican government is going to invest in tourism and bringing a lot of international events to Mexico, and invest about $850 for 45-minute webinar to all these property managers, and kind of that they wanted to attract tourism to different cities in Mexico. This is like 2009, around September. And we were using Skype, so I was speaking in English, showing a PowerPoint. The interpreter was just kind enough sitting next to me doing interpretation to Spanish, and all these conference managers of these hotels, they were just following, and they were so appreciative. Somebody from the US reaching out and kind of explaining their services. Fast forward 2010, that 850 turned out to be about $2.3 million opportunity of events in Guadalajara, in Puerto Vallarta, in Cancun, in Acapulco, the Olympic Committee, the ITU, the Immigration Forum. These are large events for a 3-people company. This was a huge, basically, return on investment. So when you think about it, 10 years after that at Kudo, I want to bring this opportunity for businesses, but of course with a proper platform, proper planning, and all of that. So that's really the vision behind Kudo.
Got it.
Yeah, that's cool. Can you tell us a bit about, you mentioned your co-founder, but some about your other key managers, key people, what backgrounds do they have and what kind of expertise do they bring to the business?
Yeah, so the problem we're solving at Kudo, which is removing language barriers for businesses on a global scale, it resonates with many people. So we've been very fortunate to attract great talents. Some fun facts. March 1st of last year, we were a team of 10. Today, we are about 120 people. So we've grown significantly. And out of these 120 people, I've met about maybe 12 of them in person. The rest of them I've never met in person. Just in the month of January, we had 11 new team members that joined us. So if you want to say who are the key people, I would call all these 125 key people at the company. But if you want to look, what is within our DNA? So in our DNA at Kudo, we have 3 major kind of elements. One is software development and product development. The other one is interpretation. And the third piece is business and the whole GTM team, right? So on our interpretation, we have a lot of key players in the industry as part of our executive team. We have Evandro, our co-founder. When I shared the vision about Kudo back in September 2016, by December, he put his resignation at the UN with all the patients and pensions and all of that, and moved with his five family members to New York. And this is a big risk for anybody, right? To move from Geneva to New York to join a startup. Barry as well. Barry is moved, basically build our client success team from a team of 1 in May of last year. Today is a team of 16 people. Global team, the client success playbook team. Claudio joined us to lead our innovation team. So he's like working on many exciting projects to assist interpreters with AI to prep for the meeting. But we have a few other interpreters, kind of people with a language background that are working at Kudo just for onboarding, training, and also making our product more of a fit with their perspective. Our CTO, Parham, has been in the software space for 20 years, enterprise software from Bay Area, and he's very focused on basically our product and grew significantly. It's about 55 people. So there are great team members at the company.
Yeah, that's good. And you mentioned sort of significant growth there over quite a short space of time, which is exciting. And I think another thing that happened for you in 2020 was the raising capital, and obviously that was during the pandemic. So I'm curious whether you have any anecdotes from how the process went. How was it raising funding during the pandemic?
Yeah, it's always great to start raising money when you don't really need money. That makes it quite interesting, and also the process. So another fun fact: I met one of our 6 investors about 2 months after the round was closed. So we raised $6 million without meeting any of our investors in person. So it's a whole new world, right? Prior to pandemic, you got to go on the road and see everybody, have lunch and dinner, and they come to your office and all that due diligence process. But things change significantly on many areas. But we got an amazing and very diverse group of investors in our seed round. And from a very Silicon Valley based kind of a focus all the way to global funds that they have a network of resources available to them, So we went to raise $2 million. That was our target. And we ended up raising $6 million. And that was great. Interesting enough, we haven't touched that money yet. So our business has been operating cash flow positive, and we have more in our bank today than the money that we raised. This is just showing how much we have a product market fit, and how really pandemic helped us to accelerate our business plans significantly. So when I look back at our initial business plan that we put together January of 2017, all the numbers, all the number of customer acquisitions, hire, all the milestones that we as entrepreneurs always being very optimistic and usually wrong on how long it takes to do the first thing, your first client, your first product ship, and so on. But really, pandemic proved me to be wrong again. But the other way, we are about 18 months ahead of our business plans in all areas: product development, customer acquisitions, revenue, hire, and so on.
So you mentioned obviously that kind of big break that happened with the pandemic, but let's just go back a bit. And the key component, of course, of multilingual web conferencing would be the RSI component, at least from the outside, right? So just take us through what were some of the kind of anecdotes, pushback, whatever you call it, from pre-pandemic, right? From the interpreters, from the clients, etc., and then how it kind of transitioned when necessity became the mother of invention in the pandemic. How attitudes changed, how people you interacted with changed. Just kind of how was it before and how is it now, and what was the transition like?
Sure. There are 2 ways to look at this space. One is you come up with a solution that is more convenient to be used to replace an existing solution, because whether it's more accessible, more convenient, less expensive. The other one is that you really build a product from ground up, or a business model that opens new opportunities and grow the market, the total addressable market significantly. By making a product easier to use for those who never used it before. We never started Kudo to replace that established market of language interpretation. Yes, there are many customers are using our product today for instead of what they've been using before. But that's a market that I had been in for many years, for 2 decades to be specific, right? So it's not that I started Kudo to replace exactly what we had prior to Kudo. We built Kudo to unlock opportunities for those with big smile on their faces for the first time that ever experience simultaneous interpretation. And that's private sector. To really unlock the opportunities within the business segment. Listen, 20% of world's population they speak English, right? 80% of the revenue of Fortune 500 companies, US basically Fortune 500 companies coming outside of the US. We've seen how video became the de facto of communication, that you can easily speak with anybody, anytime, independent from where they are. But language remains the main constraint and the bottleneck when it comes to communication. And we're here to remove that. So we want to basically, our vision is independent from where you are, you would be able to have access to qualified interpreters easily and bring that interpreter into that conversation, whether it's a due diligence call, whether it's a board meeting, training, town hall meeting. So those who don't speak the main language don't feel that they are afterthoughts. So messages are being communicated live in the languages for those that they need to receive those messages. So that's really the market that we are after.
Yeah. And on the product, so can you tell us a bit more about Kudo's capabilities today, your current offering, and I think also the recent launch of Kudo Marketplace? It would just be good to hear how that's been received and how that came about.
Yeah. So you see when so we have like a few players within the space of cloud-based remote interpretation that provide access for language within the video meetings, right? So there are a few players, but when you look closer to different solutions, you see that really positioning is different. The product itself is different. So I can tell you what the position of Kudo is. Kudo is not a solution for events. We're not positioning Kudo for live event that you want to use Kudo for one event, thousands of people. We are a meeting platform. We build a product that is designed from ground up as a self-service product. So you can schedule your own meetings. You can invite your own interpreters. You can post your own voting, your participants, your operators, and you would be able to do that on your own as a client. And we have the resources to onboard the client. So it's a truly a SaaS product with a client account, with reporting structure, with onboarding structure. And then we have like an onboarding process for the clients to feel comfortable and support them to be able to do their own meetings on their own. So that's really how we position the product. So building a meeting platform from ground up for multilingual meetings. Now, the other main challenge is how to access qualified interpreters. So I'm not talking to those established market that they have their own agencies, network of freelance interpreters or staff interpreters. They already figure it out. They have the resources in place to bring interpreters to their meetings in person or online. But if you ask a business, one of these businesses that, hey, I need to have a Korean interpreter. I want to do a due diligence call. I really like this company in Korea. I need a Korean interpreter. This could be in Switzerland. This business could be in New York. Where do I start as a business? I go on Google and look for Korean interpreter. I probably get a list of a few agencies. I call them. They need to check their database, their Rolodex of Korean interpreters, whether there is availability. At some point, this business user, you know what? Either I'm going to rely on somebody who speaks some Korean in the company, or I'm going to just try. So this is for us is a lost opportunity. For the idea for marketplace is removing friction points of accessing qualified interpreters through a very vetting and very professional process that we build in, all the algorithm that we build in, and also all the checkpoints that we have as reviewer during this process to remove that friction. So we build a delivery platform. Now we have this network of amazing and qualified interpreters. And with the marketplace, we want to make this accessible to the business users. Now, the other side is that, of course, our product on the platform itself, if we're not the most expensive, but we're pretty much right on top, because for us, quality is the key. Again, I'm the person behind the equipment at Security Council. So for me, I don't have any tolerance for poor quality, right? So, and it's not that we position the product from the beginning, quality solution. Now, all of our conditions are all about quality. When it comes to rates, we follow the highest standard of the rates. Interpreters who want to join our platform, they would choose, first of all, they need to opt in to be part of the marketplace. Not everybody has a Kudo profile, is part of the marketplace. They can also select if they want to work on assignment on an hourly rate or half a day rate or a full day rate. It's their choice. But what we have as part of a guideline, if somebody accepts to work on an hourly rate, we have an hourly rate for that interpreter. Anything after 1 hour up to 3 hours is going to be a half a day rate. Anything after 3 hours is a full day rate. And I have to admit that our rates from the interpreter's perspective are, if not more, than some of the organizations, but as that level. So our rates are very solid. And this way, we make sure that we have high quality interpreters on our platform, but also we're not creating a race to the bottom in the market. So again, quality is in the core of our focus.
Got it. So I understand that it's really tricky to manage those kind of supply demand, that equation, right? That's generally in the marketplace a big challenge. What about the technical challenge? I mean, we literally in the first segment of this podcast had a major technical challenge and had to do 9 takes just to get it started. And hopefully the solution we're using is going to fix it in the next couple of days. What are some of the key technical challenges for a multilingual web conference? Because you need a lot of people in the same room, and with the audio, etc., video. Like, is that a solved problem? Is it really hard to do still proprietarily, or just tell us a bit more about that?
Sure. So we have when it's about like the logics of how to match how the system selects an interpreters. So a lot of logics that we built into that, but also we have this reviewer role within our marketplace. This reviewer mode, you can see number of meetings that are scheduled. You can see number of interpreters that are on the platform at any given time. You also see what is the number of languages. You have all this data available. So you can always balance this looking at a week ahead, 2 weeks ahead, even at the moment. So we have this view that you can see all the balance of number of meetings happening and so on. So we really build this admin console that we have almost like a control command center. You have all the meetings within all our servers, US servers, European servers, languages, so we can have a visibility to what's going on and plan accordingly. But you're absolutely right, Florian. There is technical challenges. So especially when you're looking at individuals' calendar availability, change of schedule, how you can have backup plans, how you can bring interpreters, how you can prep interpreters. So preparation for an assignment, it's a big thing. Interpreters, they need to have enough time and material to prep for an assignment, especially if it's just going back to our example, the Korean language due diligence for a fintech, right? So that's not an easy meeting to have. You got to prep for that meeting. You need to have the deck. You need to have some documentation ready. So again, building this from ground up by the people, that we have a bit of an unfair advantage because of our domain expertise in this space, right? We really consider that. Now, of course, we're building tools such as AI Assist to also help them to get real-time feedback for during the meeting, but also shorten that prep time. But having that glossary, by having that AI available to give them, to help them to prep the time for that meeting in a shorter time. So that's another thing that we're working on, and it's going to be released in February, basically in a week from now.
And then but the video audio component, that's for you guys, that's kind of a solved problem, like dialing in multiple people, like people dropping off, connections being cut, things like that?
Yeah. Listen, Florian, video and audio is commodity today, right? So for a video, we're not a video company, never wanted to be a video company. And this is a commodity. So we build Kudo as a language as a service platform.
Got it.
So we can move from one video platform to another video platform, independent from the video, because video, we're using 12 cloud services on our platform. And one of them is video API. And so we can easily move from different video platforms. Again, it's about the logic you build. So right now we are having great audio and video, but we don't know how it's going to be prioritized when we have some connectivity issue. So that's how we built Kudo, to prioritize audio over video as well. So we want to make sure that we have the frequency range that we need, the latency that we need to have for language interpretation.
You mentioned earlier about expanding the market, or even sort of creating a new market for this. Who do you think currently are the heaviest users or the main user groups of multilingual web conferencing in general? And do you think that that's kind of evolving? Is that going to change in the future?
Yeah, absolutely. So when we started Kudo, signing up clients such as organizations, it was for us kind of on our business plan was basically cherry on the cake. It was not the main focus. The main focus was non-traditional users. Of course, the pandemic really accelerated that process. So I can tell you that pretty much in 2020, all the NATO multilingual meetings hosted on Kudo, like a lot of intergovernment agencies, a lot of organizations, a lot of large enterprises, they hosted their meetings on Kudo. Many CEOs of tech companies, Fortune 5 tech companies, they address their communities on Kudo, either on 7 live languages or 15 live languages, depending on the number of languages that their community has. But there are a lot of SMBs, small, medium-sized businesses, that they can benefit of a frictionless experience of having a multilingual meetings or a bilingual meetings. Again, being the space for 20 years, I listen to a lot of audiobook instead of reading, because I usually bike to the office. And after 20 years from my first exposure to a simultaneous interpreter, and I was like, wow, this is like amazing. I still am amazed of how simultaneous interpreters, how talented they are. And just sometimes when I listen to audiobook, I try to repeat while I'm listening, and it's just so difficult. Wow. So it's the same language. I'm talking about the same language. So if I'm listening to English audiobook and I try to repeat that, it's just impossible for me to do. And now think about they do it in a different language, the second language. So now you think about how many interpreters with these talents are out there, and how can we, amongst other technology company, could really make it possible for them to offer this amazing talent that they have to a larger audience. And that really excites me a lot, right? That bringing them in front of the new users that actually they really need the language. So some of these organizations, they have to have those languages. Maybe somebody is not even listening to those languages during a meeting, right? But we want to really bring those languages into those business settings that people, they really need that interpretation to be able to communicate.
You know what, Fardad? I'm so glad that I'm not alone with the audiobook thing, because I do this too. I've tried it as well. And sometimes I'm even trying to do German into Swiss German, my native dialect. And after, I don't know, 10, 15 seconds, I'll lose track. So I can't wrap my head around how somebody can just, do simultaneous interpreting. I don't know.
It's amazing.
It is really amazing. Go back to some of the, obviously with the pandemic, there's been all of these platforms, Hopin that we're using, SpotMe, Teams, Zoom, etc. Like, how do you work with those ginormous tech platforms, if at all? What's the dynamics, their partner, competitor? Like, just walk us a little bit through that. How do you see these bigger players that are either, are like 100 billion in the stock market, or like Hopin raised like 100 million just recently? What are the dynamics there?
Sure. So again, we're not a video company. We're not a virtual event company. We're not an event platform. We are a language as a service platform. We are the passport that anybody wants to travel abroad need. We are their language partner, and we see them as great partners when they have participants in their space, in their meetings, when they need to overcome language barriers. So that's really our expertise. That's our DNA. Language as a service. So we see them as multi-platform or distribution channel for Kudo.
Got it. And before, in our previous segment there, when Esther and I spoke, we spoke about this company. What's it called? I forgot the name, blanking on the name, but they're basically doing like these mixed reality, mixed reality conferencing, and they're like giving you the options of like human dubbing, that they call it human subtitling, etc. It was just one more example of this whole kind of buzz around AI and speech to speech and etc. So what's your take on that? And what do you think is the potential for disruption of the human element, which we so admire, right? In actually in short, medium, long term, like where these technologies are going. We're seeing a lot of research going to speech, but obviously it's nowhere near where nowhere near these fantastic human cognitive abilities we have.
Yeah. So probably you see a lot of people mentioning, our platform is based on human interpreter, right? Or and why some of these platforms, they say, okay, it's human interpreter, because there's a lot of great PR on AI out there, but when you really look closer to them, it's just way behind from interactive, real-time conversation, and that's really the focus of Kudo, right? So we're not a subtitle company, we're not a post-production company, we're not a platform for one-to-many. Or with a prescript kind of we are into interactive conversation. When people, they can exchange ideas, they can respond, they can debate, and nothing is prescripted. But also we're not naive. We know that AI is being developed, as you said, there's a lot of money being poured into AI. But even those large companies that they have been putting a lot of money into AI, mainly in translation, text to text, Google, Facebook, Microsoft, they're using still professional agencies for their own technical documentation and business documentation. So that tells you that the technology, even for translation, has come a long way, but still they need a more reliable partner for business settings, right? So I don't see this as a big threat in the near future.
And let's bring it back to Kudo then. You said, you mentioned that you were 18 months ahead of your growth plan in, a number of different areas. How are you now, refocusing? What are your growth plans in the short terms and like next steps over the next year or so?
Yeah. So we have, we're basically have a chance to really put a bit of a outbound motions for us. So we have built our sales team, and that's great for us because we haven't had a sales team. We haven't had any outbound activities. So we have now a great sales team with a great leader. Is coming from a previous successful SaaS company, Cabbage, and Noel is basically putting a very standard SaaS sales team of account executive SDRs in different regions. We built our APAC region. Dewey came in as our first GTM person in Singapore. And we already have since December 5 people in APAC region as our sales team. So we're growing really fast, and we are investing in our sales and marketing. But as far as the dynamics and the mechanics of our team, we are about 58 developers today at Kudo. So while we're investing on sales and marketing, but heavily invest in our number of products that we're shipping, and also growing our infrastructure. So we've grown significantly on the usage in the last 12 months. We went from about 3 million minutes usage per month to 3 million minutes usage per day, and within 3 weeks, and being able to really scale quickly and also have the load in different servers that we have. That's a lot of investment that we're doing in our infrastructure.
Fantastic. Well, that's quite the journey. You're very entrepreneurial, and you anticipated the need 2 to 3 years early, and then as usually happens with entrepreneurialism, there's something that triggers a burst of growth. Very impressive, and also the execution, of course, that you're putting on at the moment. So great, Farda. Thanks so much for doing this. I hope we can catch up in real life, maybe towards the end of 2021. New York was on my schedule in 2020, and it'll remain there. So let's see when I can fly over.
Would love that. Thank you for having me.
Thanks so much.